Huge shout out to Iceni for bringing this to light to help everybody grow and learn. And if you're finding this information valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe to help others join the journey. We are going to be unpacking acrylamide, this hidden danger lurking in our food. You probably haven't heard much about it, but it actually poses a bigger threat than those usual suspects like high fructose corn syrup or even seed oils.
And what's fascinating about acrylamide is that you're not going to find this as an ingredient listed on a label. It's actually something that is formed during the cooking process itself.
So we're not talking about avoiding a certain ingredient. We're talking about understanding how cooking impacts what we eat. So this is where it gets really interesting.
Exactly. Acrylamide is formed when certain sugars react with an amino acid called asparagine during high heat cooking, like frying or baking. And what's concerning is that acrylamide is actually classified as a probable human carcinogen. And that classification comes from several international organizations.
Okay, so where is this acrylamide hiding? Give me the bad news. What food should I be watching out for?
We'll get ready to rethink some of your favorite snacks. We're talking potato chips, french fries, crackers, even the crust of bread. And brace yourself, roasted coffee is high in acrylamide too.
Coffee too. Wow, this is everywhere. You know, I have to admit, I'm a bit surprised that even seemingly healthy foods like breakfast cereals can be culprits.
You're right, and it's often because those cereals use refined grains and high heat processing. So the more refined grains and sugars in a food, the higher the risk of acrylamide formation when cooked at high temperatures.
This is starting to make me reevaluate my snack choices. So we've got this potentially cancer-causing chemical in a lot of everyday foods. Can you break down why acrylamide is so dangerous? What does it do in the body?
Acrylamide has the potential to damage nerves, the brain, and even reproductive organs. And to make matters worse, it actually breaks down into even more toxic byproducts. And considering that cancer is the second most common cause of death worldwide, acrylamide's potential role becomes even more alarming.
That's really concerning. It seems like we can't escape it entirely. So is there anything we can do to minimize our intake?
There are definitely steps we can take. It starts with understanding how cooking methods play a role. Choosing lower heat options over high heat frying or baking is key.
So instead of roasting that chicken at 400 degrees, maybe try slow cooking it. I'm also curious about ingredients. Are there certain things we should be choosing or avoiding?
Absolutely. Opting for natural sugars like honey or unrefined cane sugar over refined sugars is a good strategy.
That makes sense. Could you elaborate on why natural sugars are better in this context? Is it about how they break down under heat?
Yes, refined sugars are more likely to lead to acrylamide formation during high heat cooking. Interestingly, when it comes to fats, choosing saturated fats like tallow butter or coconut oil might actually help reduce acrylamide formation.
That's surprising. I always thought saturated fats were the enemy. This changes things.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we need to pay attention to both cooking methods and ingredient choices. What about our overall diet? Are there any changes we can make there?
Focusing on whole foods and limiting processed foods, especially those high acrylamide culprits we mentioned earlier, is a huge step in the right direction. It really is. It's alarming how many calories in the standard modern diet come from ultra-processed foods. No wonder we're seeing so many health issues. This acrylamide situation really highlights the need for a shift in how we approach food.
I couldn't agree more. So we've discussed the dangers of acrylamide, but is there any good news here? Are we just doomed to suffer the consequences? Or is there something we could do to counteract its effects?
There is some good news. Pairing those potentially acrylamide-rich foods with certain other foods can actually help protect against the harmful effects.
So it's not just about avoiding the bad stuff, it's also about adding in some good stuff, like a balancing act.
Exactly. And some of these acrylamide-fighting foods might surprise you. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts, even cabbage are incredibly powerful in this regard.
Wow, those veggies really live up to their superfood reputation.
They do. And garlic is another one that can help counteract acrylamide's effects.
Interesting. So we've got our veggies and garlic. Anything else we can add to our arsenal?
Sprouts, especially broccoli sprouts, are fantastic. And don't forget about foods rich in vitamin C, like sauerkraut, citrus fruits, bell peppers.
Besides those powerhouses, are there other allies in this fight against acrylamide?
Green tea and spirulina are both great additions. It seems like nature really does provide us with the tools we need to stay healthy.
It's amazing how powerful those plant-based foods can be. But let's talk about coffee for a moment. You mentioned earlier that it's high in acrylamide. Is there any way to reduce that, or are coffee lovers just out of luck?
There's a surprising solution. Dark roasted and espresso coffees, which are roasted at higher temperatures, actually have significantly less acrylamide than light roast coffee.
Wait, so roasting coffee at a higher temperature reduces acrylamide?
Yeah.
How does that work? I would have thought it would be the opposite.
It seems counterintuitive, but when coffee beans are roasted at those super high temperatures over 400 degrees Fahrenheit, the acrylamide becomes unstable and breaks down.
That's good news for those of us who need our morning coffee fix. This whole conversation has been really eye-opening. You've given us a lot to think about in terms of how we cook and what we eat.
It's fascinating how something as seemingly simple as cooking can have such a profound impact on our health.
Absolutely. And as much as we've learned today, there's always more to discover, isn't there?
Absolutely. There's always more to learn when it comes to food and how it interacts with our bodies.
Well, this deep dive has certainly been eye-opening. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on acrylamide and the choices we can make to minimize our exposure.
I think the key takeaway here is that we're not powerless. We have the knowledge and the tools to make informed decisions about our health.
Absolutely. We can choose lower heat cooking methods, opt for natural sugars, load up on those acrylamide-fighting foods, and even switch to dark roast coffee. It's empowering to realize we have so much control.
It really is. Small changes can make a big difference.
A huge thanks again to Iseni for bringing this critical information to light. If you found this deep dive as valuable as I did, hit that like button and subscribe to help us spread the word and empower others to make healthier choices. And as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts and questions in the comments below.
Knowing what we know now about acrylamide, how will you approach your food choices differently?